So Heather, last hour we were talking about the results from Tuesday's primary, six primaries. Hillary Clinton won four of them, Bernie Sanders two, but more importantly, and most specifically, Hillary Clinton clinched the pledged delegates there. There is no way for Bernie Sanders to end this campaign with more pledged delegates than Hillary Clinton. Even if he was to somehow win every single delegate in Washington, D.C. this week, he would still be almost 340 delegates down. It's an insurmountable lead, and the superdelegates then fall in line. And that's frankly the way it should be. I would be happy to see no superdelegates whatsoever. Some other mechanism to deal with the event that somebody gets hit by a bus after the primary race or something like that happens. But nevertheless, not to be overshadowed. Of course, it was a long primary. I don't think in the final analysis it was even remotely as rancorous, frankly, as 2008 was. And I think folks like you and I and folks who pay attention, I think, had a warped perspective of how rancorous this was, because we now have things like Twitter, frankly, and all sorts of social media advances, if you will, that we didn't have at the time. I don't think, Facebook was as politicized as it is now, that people didn't use it in the same way. YouTube was barely developing at that time. We're living in a different era where people who are heavily engaged in this stuff have an outsized voice. Maybe outsized is not the right word, but a voice that can be perceived as more louder than it is representative, broadly speaking, of the voting population. And part of that is because folks like you and I, we spend a lot of time online. We are in this community. But if you look at the polling in 2008, more or less at this time, 60% of Hillary Clinton voters said that they would not vote for Barack Obama in the general election. And like you mentioned in the first hour, Hillary Clinton actually has a wider lead on Bernie Sanders, much more so in just about every category than Barack Obama did. So 60% of Hillary Clinton voters in 2008 was more people than the 25% of Bernie Sanders voters who say they will not support Hillary Clinton in the general. I imagine that number will shrink just like it did in 2008. So now that we're largely speaking past the contention of who will be the Democratic nominee, we still have a question as to what's going to happen at the convention, but I have a feeling that'll be resolved soon. Let's talk about the implications of Hillary Clinton, sort of generically speaking, but also in terms of Hillary Clinton herself, being the first major party nominee who is a woman. And I think, if I had to bet right now, I think it's quite clear that she's going to be the first woman president that we have in this country. Let's talk a little bit about those implications. You wrote a piece about it in Salon.com last week, and this is a big deal. I mean, obviously a big deal for my daughter. I recorded Hillary Clinton's speech. She watched it this week, and it's a big deal for her, but it's broader than that.
Yeah. I mean, I think people, I don't know how many women feel this way, but, I can only speak for myself as someone who's, I'm very politically engaged and have been my whole life. And it has felt strange, I'll be perfectly honest, to me that half the population, and certainly more than half of the Democratic Party, which is female, has not ever been the nominee. There's only been one woman nominated for vice president. That was Geraldine Ferraro. Mm-hmm. That was a long time ago. It was over 30 years ago. This has felt very strange to me for a long time. I mean, I can only describe it as being, uncomfortable in a way that's difficult to describe. And the idea that we are now, that voters, and my take on this is that it's very special. I mean, we have a lot of of jobs that I mean, there are a lot of glass ceilings in our society. Let's just put it that way. I mean, we still only have 20% representation in the U.S. government of women. Places like Hollywood, it's like 6% of women are directors. CEOs, 5%. So there's still a lot of disparity, and you see it all the time. But there's something different about the voters actually validating the idea that a woman can have the top job. It is meaningful, I think, on a level that goes way beyond just the job itself, or frankly, Hillary Clinton herself. It's an actual validation that says a majority of the Democratic Party right now, and hopefully a majority of the American people, are saying, okay, women can do these jobs, and here's how you do it. Now, a lot of the studies show that until a woman actually inhabits the job, actually does it, and is seen to have done it, and people acknowledge that she can do it, people are reluctant to believe it on some kind of a visceral level. I mean, they've done studies about this, and this isn't particular to men, by the way. I mean, a lot of women feel the same way. I mean, this is just a conditioning that you have through your whole life, that
Right.
you've seen men in these jobs. That's who does it, and that's what feels legitimate to you until you actually see somebody else do it. So on that symbolic basis, more than just shattering the glass ceiling and saying, look at this, it's finally here, and sort of celebrating that, which I'm all for, by the way. I mean, I think I think that's great. But I think the fact that it's a democratic process doing it is a really meaningful milestone in American culture, and I think it's going to have reverberations that we don't even know about yet. What they've found in the studies is that when a woman takes the top job in a political realm, like governor or whatever the top job that a woman takes, it has this tremendous kind of trickle-down effect where suddenly women are more willing to run, that people are more willing to elect them, they get greater representation, and more than that, they get into government and begin to have a real effect on the policy agenda. And it isn't just a feminist policy agenda, it is a broader progressive agenda. And that makes sense, right? 60% of the Democratic Party are women, and there's a huge faction among them of progressives. So, I mean, this is going to have an effect that goes beyond just the symbolism of it, and actually may result in a more progressive party, particularly, I think, if, we've seen that there's a strong progressive wing in the Democratic Party that's ascendant. You could see it with the Sanders campaign. I think it's been coming for a long time, actually. I mean, I think the Dean phenomenon was part of that. I mean, I think that Obama's coalition certainly had a strong element of that, and now we've seen the Sanders campaign sort of turn that into a real, electoral juggernaut, as it were. So, I think that what we're going to see from all of this, if you combine all those factors, you're going to see a Democratic Party that is more responsive to the progressive wing, and I think it does have something to do that electing a woman in the top job is part of that.